As part of their plans for the next 5 years, the government has pledged to end rough sleeping on Britain's streets. They have a major task on their hands. The most recent figures show there are currently more than 300 rough sleepers on the streets of towns in Sussex and Kent, with nearly 9,000 homeless people living in temporary accommodation.
Now, Brighton has the region's highest numbers. The charity shelter says 1 in every 75 people in the city is technically homeless. For our exclusive report, Amanda Akass has been talking to people in the city who are or have been homeless, among them a man who spent 4 months living in a sewer in a bid to avoid the shame of sleeping rough in public.
For Brighton's homeless population, midwinter is always bleak. A constant battle with the cold, rain, hunger, drugs and violence. Last year, 15 rough sleepers died on the city streets. Dirk says homelessness became a way of life for him from the age of 10.
I was in some pretty nasty children's homes from hell where I was abused quite a lot. So I kept running away to London. I'd sleep under bridges.
He became addicted to prescription drugs and spent time in prison, where he came off the drugs, but soon ended up back on the streets.
The worst thing for me was I lived in a sewer, an outflow, and it was underground, and I thought, well, I'm not going to live up on top, you know, feeling shame and dirty and people looking down on me. The first night it was freezing, I was soaked, there were rats in there, and I was actually very frightened and scared, you know. Yeah, it's quite an emotional story, you know.
Dirk now has a bed on a homeless bus and volunteers to help the charity which runs it, Sussex Homeless Support, founded 6 years ago by Jim Deans.
It started off like me and my daughter in my kitchen, and now we're looking at industrial units, and I mean, it's massive. Now we're doing everything from feeding people, dressing people, you know, like all the kind of stuff. We're giving them accommodation through the buses. Government should be providing this. It's government that created the issue. It's government's lack of houses. But what are we going to do? We're going to sit back and watch this people on the street dying. Down here we've got all the coats, T-shirts, socks, pants, vests.
Sussex Homeless Support have also recently begun distributing sleeping pods. This man ended up on the streets last November after breaking up with his partner.
The biggest shock for me was becoming invisible, because that's what happens when you become homeless, you become invisible. And that's the hardest thing to take. Now resorting to using one of these pods here. Other than that, I don't know where I'll be now. And I'm just gonna, this Christmas, I'm just gonna blank it, you know, like I did last Christmas.
The most recent official head count in November found 78 rough sleepers in the city, though charities believe the true figure is higher. Last week there was anger after the council began fencing off these arches at Duke's Mound, a park on the seafront where many rough sleepers take shelter. Catherine pitched her tent in one of its last accessible spaces.
Being out here in this weather, it is absolutely freezing. Here it's warm, there's no wind at night time. There's usually loads of homeless down here. It's a safe place at night time to sleep. It's safe for me because I'm a woman. And I think it's disgusting what they've done.
She says she became homeless after leaving a violent relationship, but life on the streets is tough.
I've got a scar above my eyebrow where I got attacked in my own hometown where we were sleeping rough. Just after last Christmas, by two 14-year-old boys, they had a bike chucked on top of me.
Earlier this week, all of these shelters were blocked off with fencing. The council told me it was too dangerous for people to sleep here and they had to do it for health and safety reasons. But this morning, in a dramatic U-turn, the leader of the council announced the railings would be removed because they don't want to create a hostile environment for rough sleepers.
Merry Christmas, mate.
Catherine's fiancé Ted was discharged from the army after getting shot in Afghanistan. He ended up on the streets after a previous relationship broke down and suffers from epilepsy. He says people often assume he's on drugs.
I could be in a doorway having an epileptic fit and normal people just walk past and they think that I'm having a spice attack and they leave me. It is very draining. But I wake up every morning and I go, thank God I'm here.
The council say they've helped 200 rough sleepers into accommodation this year and insist the issue is a real priority.
This is a national crisis. There is an absolute shortage of good quality, low rent housing supply all across the country, and particularly in Brighton it's acute. Now we have made plans, we are going to build over 800 council homes. We are doing absolutely everything we can to make more homes available.
For Dirk, Ted and Catherine, it could be a cold and perilous wait.
Well, let's cross to Brighton now, where Amanda is for us. And Amanda, there are emergency accommodation options available for rough sleepers, but they don't necessarily want to take them up.
Yes, that's right. So the council have recently opened up a new homeless shelter in a church in Hove, open every night of the year, but it only has 15 places. There are also facilities for people who very recently become homeless, and there's an emergency shelter, but it only opens up when temperatures drop to below freezing. Now, the council does provide temporary housing for nearly 4,000 people and emergency options, but many of the people I spoke to for this report told me that when they took up that option, they ended up staying in squalid conditions with people taking drugs, and they felt it was better to be out on the streets.
OK, Amanda, thank you.